If you don't know where you want to go, any road will take you there. It's a quote from today's podcast. Our guest is Fred Stuvek, author of It Starts With You. But before we get into that, it's a great conversation, by the way. Great conversation. I mean, that quote that I read at the top just kind of showed up about 45 minutes in. So it's not even like he was sitting here, gotta say this brilliant thing, gotta say this brilliant thing, gotta say this brilliant thing. It was just kind of like, look, guys, just here's the deal. And he's right, because you get in the car, you want to go to a restaurant. You zip that right into the microphone, right?
No, I didn't, but I figured it out. I don't even know what to do with that. We have to leave that in there.
I guess we do.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, so okay. Intro rerouted. How you doing, Kelvin?
I'm doing fine, Josh. How the heck are you?
I'm good.
Oh, that was good. Okay, sorry.
So,
I heard it and I'm like, wonder if that showed up. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it did.
Yeah. Well, that may tie into my book for this week. I don't know.
Maybe. Although you would have had been pulling the shit the other way, maybe. Whew. Okay.
Right.
So I think we got a little bit date relative toward the end of the podcast, but not too much. I don't know when we're releasing this, but we're recording it right after Thanksgiving. So yeah, in case you're wondering, if who knows, it could be January or February. So in case you're wondering, that's when we recorded it. Anyway, we are brought to you today by Audible. If you want a free audiobook, a free month at Audible, go to audibletrial.com/JKWD or text JKWD to 500-500. Again, that's audibletrial.com/JKWD or text JKWD to 500-500. You could go get Blue Fishing by Steve Sims. This is not a book about catching bluefish. This is a book about making things happen for you. It's a book I'm reading right now, and a great takeaway right from chapter 1. I don't think he'd be upset if I gave it to you, but he quotes his father as saying, you don't drown from falling in the water. You drown from staying there. Kelvin, you got a book?
That was good. I like that. I almost drowned in 3 feet of water one time because I forgot to stand up. Well, we'll get there another
It's not
day.
the fact that you fell.
Not the fact that I fell.
Down.
Oh, but don't try breathing that crap. That's all I got to say. Hey, I do have a book today. This is not what I'd normally do in one circuit, but it's Stephen Fry's Victorian Secrets. Scandal, Sex, Murder, and Madness. From legendary British comic Stephen Fry. It's got 4 and 3/4 stars. I'm thinking it's going to be nice because this guy got me laughing just looking at him. Not to say he looks funny is what that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say it looks like it's going to be a humorous thing.
So he's a funny guy, that Stephen Fry.
Funny guy. Oh, we're getting good today.
Boom, So you can get either one of those or one of any other 190,000 titles from Audible by going to audibletrial.com/JKWD or texting JKWD to 500 500. And on the other side of the music, you will hear our discussion with Fred Stuvek. Josh and Kelvin World Domination Podcast, where we talk about better humanhood and teach you how to dominate your world. You ready? Here we go. All right. Well, Fred, welcome to the show. I've got Google. Everybody's got Google and the web. Why don't you tell people in your words who you are, what you do, and why you're here?
Well, first of all, Kelvin and Josh, thank you for having me on the show. I currently live in Knoxville, Tennessee. I was born in West Virginia, raised in southwestern Pennsylvania, played a lot of sports. We had 4 seasons there. We had football, basketball, track and baseball season. So I was involved in all 4 seasons. After graduating from high school, I attended the Naval Academy and played football there, led 3 years of quarterback. I was commissioned, spent 5 years in the service. And after my military obligation, I went into the civilian world and had a number of jobs in both the public and private sector. I had a fairly diverse range of experience, went through an IPO, bought companies, sold companies. I've traveled extensively. I have 7 million frequent flyer miles. And then I sold my company the year before. I was trying to sort out what to do and decided to write a book. I'd gone out and given some talks to different groups, organizations, and almost without exception, every time I would conclude my talk, someone would come up to me and say, well, where can I buy your book? And I said, well, no, I don't have one. They said, well, you should write one. And I've enjoyed working with young people, trying to help young people, mentoring them, so to speak. And just a lot of the principles and attributes that I've been talking about all these years, I decided to put into a book. And my wife was encouraged me to do the same thing. And I always try to listen to her as much as I can. It makes for a healthy relationship. Okay.
Well, I needed that information a long time ago.
Yes, dear.
Book before.
Yes, dear.
Oh, that's why you say that to me all the time now.
Yes, dear.
Oh boy, yeah. So I take it both of you are married.
I am.
I have been.
Okay.
A couple times.
Okay.
I'm presently not.
Yeah.
But life is all right anyway.
Well, there's always the internet.
I've heard stories. Yeah. I actually have a profile on Match, but nobody would ever know it was me, and I don't let them get to me. But that's that's another podcast.
Yeah. I do not recommend that. I was just making a side
after I finish reading your book, you may have some of my questions.
We'll get a psychiatrist on for that one, Kelvin.
You see, my friend Josh is really good to me, right?
Yeah.
So what were these talks about that people, were looking for a book out of them?
Well, one talk was to a Marine ROTC unit on leadership, and another one was to a group of young people about developing confidence, and another one was to a organization that talked about, what are the attributes for success. And it kind of got my attention. What I wanted to do, Josh and Kelvin, there are a lot of self-help books out there, but I wanted to write something that was a little bit different insofar that I do believe I have a fairly diverse and unique range of experience, both in the sports, in the military, and in the business world, private and public. And I wanted to put together something that would help someone develop the mindset and habits for success, because how we think and how we act, it really defines you as a person. Mm-hmm. So when I wrote the book, I wanted to put it in such a way that each one builds on the other, but I also wanted it to be comprehensive and specific. For example, what is important? Why is it important? And how do you do something about it? And you may notice that, at the end of every chapter, I have 5 key takeaways, recommendations. I have things grouped. I like the numbers 3, 5, and 10, whatever. So everything in the book is grouped in 3, 5, and 10. But the first chapter, and I think this is the most important one, is believe. You have to believe. If you don't believe in yourself, how do you expect someone else to believe in you? And along with that, if you have a staunch belief in what you are about and who you are, and if you're doing something that you believe in and you're good at, that gives you confidence. So that's why the next chapter in the book is, once you believe, you also have to find a good fit for yourself. For example, if let's say you're an introvert and you want to make good money, so you want to go into sales, but that's a very extroverted type of situation. Well, you either develop the skills to do it or you don't do it, but don't put yourself in a situation where there's a mismatch. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, find a situation that you fit in well. It makes total sense.
Yep. And then you have to develop the. I also covered developing the skills and the confidence and all of that. But sometimes people make decisions for all the wrong reasons. They do it because they're resistant to change. They're fearful. They don't have the skill set or whatever. But you can do something, because if you don't like how if you think things are going good right now, that's probably going to change, because life is a series of ups and downs, and you have to learn how to deal with that. But developing the mindset and habits for success, and putting a plan in place and having the discipline to follow up and follow through is basically the premise of the book.
All right. So you gave us a nice list of the things that you have done. So experiences you've had. What was in that entire process? What was the toughest part for you? Of the things that you put in the book and you've told us about, what was the toughest thing for you to put together?
Well, I had a number of situations that were challenging. Probably the first one, Kelvin, was when I got out of the military, I then learned. Well, I knew about it some then, but I started to develop a better understanding of the difference between positional authority and personal authority. Okay? You understand? It's one thing to be in command of a division, etc. Okay? Because you are leading by virtue of your position. Mm-hmm. Well, when you get out into the civilian world, you have positional authority, but you had better have that personal authority, because you can take that personal authority with you from job to job. If you don't have that, that's going to be very difficult. And things have changed today, particularly with some of the young people. I've always tried to avoid giving a direct order. Now, are there times when you have to, based on the circumstances and the leadership style that's necessitated? Absolutely. However, if you can involve someone in a decision, involve them in the process, respect their opinion, get their input. They may not like it, but they'll understand it. And if they're involved in part of the process, and you explain it to them, treat them like an adult, like a partner, like someone who you respect and value, that's going to go a long way towards being able to work with people. So I've always, I really don't, I'm no better than anybody else. Okay, I just do some things differently. So I've never gone into a situation and I've never not respected another person, regardless of where they're from or what they've done, because, everybody has certain challenges ahead of them. But I found that there are just some good people out there. You have to work with people, understand them, and respect them, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. I did 20 in the Air Force.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't commissioned though, so
That's
I
probably
retired as a master sergeant. So that whole
You did.
not giving an order thing is yeah. So I can identify with that very well. Thank you. That was good.
Well, and the first thing I did when I got on my first assignment, I was stationed on a ship. I walked up and I had a division. There was a couple master chiefs, a senior chief. And I said, you know where I am. You know my watch schedule. If you have any problems, let me know and I'll support you. But just keep doing what you're doing. I mean, they've been in the service for 15, 20, 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just walking on the ship. So who am I to tell them how to do things without first getting an understanding of what's going on and developing a relationship with them? And that usually worked out pretty good. Actually, it worked out very well.
Yeah, Navy.
And thank you for your service.
You're welcome, and for yours. Navy Chiefs aren't anything to play with. I've learned that.
No. Yeah. I mean, some of them they have barnacles, but they, it's a pretty good group of people. Matter of fact, my wife's late father was a master chief in the Navy as well. And I come from a military family, and of course, our generation or my generation, a lot of our parents were in World War II or served in other conflicts.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, the military gave you some training in the confidence and mindset piece, but I'm guessing you had it before that because you were. You're a force sport guy. If I was reading your bio right,
Yep.
You're you won some local sports honors.
Mm-hmm.
Even before you got to the Naval Academy. What kind of gave you that confidence and mindset as you were headed, as you were a very young man?
Well, I grew up in a small coal mining town in southwestern Pennsylvania. Good values, good people, good work ethic. Nothing was ever given to me. I respected, loved my parents a great deal. And we had a large family. There were 7. My father was a school teacher. You can imagine a school teacher's salary with 7 is just, it doesn't go very far. So I had to develop a sort of self-reliance, and if I wanted some money, I would have to do jobs and work in between seasons or late at after practice or whatever. And but by doing that, I developed a sort of self-reliance and dependency on myself. Also, I put myself out there, and I think that the military and sports are excellent training grounds for people, because if you look at the military, you're thrown in with a bunch of people, and you are all working together on a common goal, and you have to work together and as a team, which is basically what you do in business. But growing up, I just was very involved in a lot of sports. I had a lot of small jobs, and I think those values that I went through, and the experiences I went through, helped me a great deal. The discipline to develop with sports and so forth. And Josh and Kelvin, if you've never been through something, how do you know how you're going to react to it? Okay. So I had the benefit of being able to fail. Okay, we lost games. There were times when I didn't get my way. So I had to sit on the bench sometimes. And I think those are lessons that humble you and learn you, and you strive to do better. Now, I didn't get any trophies for showing up or participating because I don't really believe in that theory, but I had to just develop that mindset and habits to be successful. And I always enjoyed reading Greek and Roman history for some reason. And whenever I was recruited for several schools, I had a visit to the Naval Academy. The whole commitment, honor, discipline, I thought it would make me a better person. That's why I went there.
And it seems like it takes special type of person to look at, discipline and honor and say, yeah, that's for me. Whereas a lot of other people might go, yeah, I'm going to college. I'm 18. I want to go have fun. Maybe I'll try to learn something along the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
did you manage to have some fun along the way as well?
Well, back then it was just a little bit different. When you first are sworn in, they take away all your basic rights.
Mm-hmm.
And then they give them back to you a little bit at a time over the months and over the ensuing years. And by the time you're a first classman or a senior, you can actually drive a car on campus. So I thought I had a pretty good deal after those years. But you're right, Josh. It has to be a good fit. That was a good fit for me because of my background and just the way I was kind of put together, I guess. But it was, for some people, it's not the way to go. Some people might be better off going to, Georgetown or Alabama or Tennessee or wherever. But it has to be a good fit for that person. I thought it was a good fit for me. It was one of the best decisions I ever made.
Good. Yeah, it's good having that self-knowledge. I did not have that self-knowledge going into school. I went to I wasn't a big partier, but the school I wound up at was a big party school. It's a UMass Amherst, and I wound up on the 6.5-year plan.
Wasn't that a couple of years ago, if memory serves, was ranked the top or one of the top party schools in the country?
Yeah, they get up there. I mean, usually the top ones wind up in Florida. Because Western Massachusetts, you can't party from you can't really party from December to February or March.
No. So, well, hey, sometimes you have to know what it is that you don't like doing in order to.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that, having more experience, having the opportunity to go out and try different things can help you find a little more focus in terms of this is what I would like to do or what I would, don't want to do. Now, I think in former times, it used to be people would go to college and they would figure out what they wanted to do, or maybe go to some type of a technical training school. But I think today, I think that people have to. I think we're more specialized today. It seems to be people getting a little more finance oriented, technology oriented, et cetera, because everybody's trying to drill down. So for those young people out there that are trying to figure out what to do, I would just encourage anybody and everyone to try as many things and to look inside yourself and to develop awareness as to what are your skill set and what are you good at.
And I think that there's such an opportunity to do that today with the internet.
Yep.
Just the ability to say, oh, I want to learn something about this for a few months and not have to spend $25,000 a year or more just to try something out.
Yep. Well, there is a whole menu of option. There's various venues, distance learning, online.
Yeah.
There's just everything. So it gives you a chance to get exposed to different things, and you find out what you like or what you don't like. By the same token, from a business standpoint, it has already closed. It's compressed the distance. Distance isn't really an issue. The only limiting issue today is our time zones. And when you're working today, you're just as likely to be working with someone across town, across country, or on another continent, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I bring up the concept of emotional quotient in my book, because we are dealing with people from all walks of life and different customs and cultures. And to work effectively with those people, you have to be able to empathize and understand their point of view, break down those barriers, okay, work together, and find common ground. And that's why I spent a whole one chapter on the subject of emotional quotient. In your life, black guy and a Jewish guy walk in the bar, start a podcast, right? Right?
He's done some research.
Have you been on the website? No.
Yeah. Well, you know how that happened? That happened because you two started talking to each other, and then you said, hey, you kind of connected. So I always try to engage and talk to people as much as I can. And I find that you can plan things all you want, but it's through those interactions and those random encounters with other people that you are able to find something and take advantage of it. And it's kind of worked that way with my life too. That I think opportunity is when preparation and coincidence intersect.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, so what was I going to say? I want to go back and talk about failure a little bit because you talked about that, and that's one of my big things about failure. People are afraid to fail, and my concept, although I'm affected by it like everybody else, but the basic thing is, if you never fail at anything, you haven't done anything. So talk to us about failure and how that's played into the level of your success today.
Well, as I said earlier, life is a series of ups and downs, wins and losses. I would submit, what is worse than failing? What is worse than failing? Never trying and never knowing. And that in itself is a failure because you failed to act. Now, I talk about why people don't do certain things in my book, and I actually talk about how strategies can be developed for that. Mm-hmm. However, as I said before, when you go in, it's going to either go good or it isn't, or maybe to go halfway in between. But when you go in and it's gone well, that's a W, or you've learned something from it. But if it hasn't gone well and it wasn't a good experience, you lost that game. Michael Jordan missed a lot of baskets, but he still scored a lot of points. So you have to learn from the losses, and you can't dwell on it. And you also have to maintain a positive mindset. For example, just because you went in and things didn't work out, you try to take away from the positives, learn from what happened, and try not to repeat the same mistake over and over again. I truly believe that how people react to failure and handle adversity is the single biggest challenge in your life. And you have to, in a certain sense, you've heard this term before, fail your way to success. And I think that's very important. You have to celebrate the wins and learn from the losses, but go in with a positive mindset. And you owe it to yourself and to the company or whoever you're working with to be prepared. Now, Kelvin, you're going in to talk to somebody, okay? Whatever it is, it could be a sales call. I don't know what. This is just theoretical. But if you've prepared and you have a good attitude, you walked in there and you say, I got this. I'm prepared. I did my research, etc. Chances are it's going to go pretty well. Now, if you're not prepared and you haven't, done your homework and haven't trained properly, it's probably not going to go well. And that's on you. Mm-hmm. That's on you. It's not the other person's fault. Denial is not just a river in Egypt. Okay? It's not a river in Egypt. You can't be a denial. You have to accept that accountability. Right. Take the initiative yourself, learn from it, move on. Does that make sense to you?
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. I fail pretty good. I look good at it, as a matter of fact. Sometimes, yeah, I probably fail prettier than most people, But
but you've learned from each one, haven't you?
It's a real fear for most people. I mean, that fear itself. So, do you cover in your book? You talk about strategies to overcome some of this stuff, right? So, how do you? You just gave me a part of it, but I'm sure you've got to strategize in your book. How do you overcome the fear of failure? Or I don't know if you cover that part. Well, yeah.
Yeah, I do. Oh, okay. Well, one of the things I talk about in my book, and it's spread throughout there. You heard the term "no pain, no gain," mm-hmm. right? No discomfort, no growth. I believe that you have to put yourself in situations that are where you have to stretch yourself and almost to, you have to get out of your comfort zone. And by doing that, you're going to experience new and different things, and you're going to learn from that. Now, by doing it repeatedly, you're going to find out it's not so bad. But if you look at why people are afraid or are fearful, number one, they've never been involved in that experience before. Number two, they don't like change. Well, change is a constant. Something's always going to change, and everything may seem the same today. This could be a lot different 5 months from now, 1 year from now, whatever. So, and you have to look at developing the confidence and the skill set that are needed. How do you do what do you do for that? As I mentioned in the book, one of the first things is awareness. You have to do a personal inventory and decide what it is you're good at, what you aren't good at. And then you have to say, okay, to get to this point, I want to do A, B, C. You develop goals along with timelines, and you have your objectives that you can measure from time to time to get there. Now, the first thing you don't want to do is set yourself up for failure. Okay, you have to establish realistic goals, but by doing that and achieving a small milestone or objective over time, your confidence builds up, your expertise builds up, and you form good habits, and you get into a win mode versus a loss mode. And I think another thing that happens too, Kelvin, is I think that we're creatures of habit, and we want to be creatures of good habit, but sometimes we hang around with certain people, and they want to maintain the status quo. You're trying to better yourself. You're doing this. You're doing that. Well, if they're not supportive and they don't like that, and they get on you because, well, you don't have time for them because you're going to night school or doing this or doing that, well, then you need to find a new group of friends, okay? Because they don't care about you. So you have to be comfortable with yourself and focus on what it is that you can do, because at the end of the day, it's about you believing in you and developing that mindset and those habits for success. And it can be done. It's a learned behavior. You heard the term natural athlete. Said, okay, he or she is a natural athlete. I don't believe that at all. Now, I believe that some people might be predisposed to do better in certain areas, but the bottom line is you have to put your time in. And in the book, I covered a study by study by the Berlin Academy of Music that Gladwell referenced in his book. And they looked at the top musicians. And they said, what was the one distinguishing characteristic between success or failure or high achievement and being run-of-the-mill? It was quite simple. The high achievers put the time in. And they actually quantified it at 10,000 hours. Now, I would admit, you look at Tom Brady, he puts his time in. Michael Jordan, he puts his time in. Usain Bolt. I mean, if you look at all the awards he's had and the races he's won, I would say his training, the time that he runs in a race is about like this, and his training's like this. So you just don't show up and get it done. And I don't necessarily believe that leadership is a born trait. If leadership was a born trait, then when Josh was born, they would have had a little ring around his ankle said leadership award, and then just put you over there. It doesn't work. Leadership can be developed over time. And that's why it's important to associate with good people and develop good habits.
And I really like the idea of sports. Growing up, I played tennis, baseball, and soccer growing up. And I stuck to tennis in high school, but there's an obvious fail, right? There's a win and a loss. There's a winning team, a losing team. But it's a low stakes failure. So you can learn that to fail might hurt emotionally, but most failures are not life and death.
No.
So once you get over the loss, you don't have to worry about it anymore. You can switch from I don't want to lose, I don't want to lose, I don't want to lose, to I want to win, I want to win, I want to win. And I think that's super important to learn as early as you can.
Yeah, and that's where I think Josh, that's where the positive attitude comes in. Because if you're going in there and you're concentrating on, okay, I got this, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to learn from it. You have to have a good attitude. And if it doesn't go well, first of all, don't dwell on the negatives. Okay, it was a learning experience. You learn from it and you move on. But you have to accept accountability. At the end of the day, you're responsible for you. I mean, how many people, Josh or Kelvin, when you wake up, are thinking, what can I do for Josh or Kelvin today? Well, there's probably a few. But if you think there's 100 out there thinking that, okay? So you have to make your own way.
They haven't shown up so far. Now, on that note, I have to say, and I can't, I'm not going to call a name. Well, I got a name I could call, but I'm not going to call that name right now. There are a lot of figures out there these days who are poo-pooing positive attitude. They're poo-pooing positivity. And I'm like, how can these people be actually be sitting there knowing what they've had to go through to say that positivity is not effective? Or that it's, delusional. So what do you got to say to those folks?
Well, first of all, I totally agree with that, because if you think about it today, you turn on the news, look in the paper, how many positive messages did you see? There is a lack of positive messages in our country. And I think it starts at different places and works its way down. But I've always taken the approach that you have to stay positive, and you have to set the narrative, set the tone, and you criticize in public. You praise in public, criticize in private. But when you're messaging and you're getting something out there, I think you have to take the high road, and we're not taking the high road enough right now. Okay, it's easy to get negative. It's real easy to get negative. It's easy to get down and dirty, but it's a lot harder to take that high road and to maintain your composure and not take things personal. And I think the more the leaders in our country on both sides of the fence that can do that and get away from all this back and forth stuff, and we look at what we need to do to make things better. We need to put more into education. We need to put more into mental health. We need to put more into the opioid crisis. We need to spend more time helping our citizens to turn their lives around. And I think the focus needs to be on what can we do to help our citizens. Now, are we doing that yet? To some extent. And I think you look at the veterans right now. I think it's a shame what's happened with the veterans. Okay, they're coming back. They're going from Iraq to Afghanistan or whatever. They're going 120 miles an hour, and after 4 tours, all of a sudden, here, chill, rest. You're now a civilian. Very difficult. If they have a problem, they have to wait days, weeks, months. We're ahead of a system in place. Abraham Lincoln established the VA system because there weren't that many hospitals back then. Things have changed. We have 6,000 hospitals in this country. Any veteran, he or she, should be able to go to any facility under the treatment of the government. We have Medicare, expand that for them, or something to that effect. We need to do a better job, because with every disconnect and every degree of separation, you get a degree of uncertainty and a degree of confusion and disconnects which exist, and that can spill over into personal lives, business, community, and so forth. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, and the strange thing is, once you take a step back and look around, it's never been safer to be alive. There's never been less poverty than there is now. There's never been less illness. There's never even been less violence. And there's never been fewer people being eaten by tigers and bears. And,
yes.
And we've never been wealthier. So, by all accounts, the world is an amazing place to live in right now, but you'd never know it if you listen to people who are, frankly, rich and powerful.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of getting a little perspective and finding out what actually is negative about what's going on. And I think a lot of it has to do with a lack of empathy. And you were talking about emotional quotient earlier. I mean, EQ is a fairly new concept, I believe.
Yes.
Where did you first pick that up?
Oh, I had read about it years ago, and actually covered that in my book one time about a certain young man that I hired. There was a very technical position. We were in a joint venture.
Mm-hmm.
And it would develop research and development, product marketing, everything. Well, we had probably half a dozen applicants. The man that I chose for that position was a writer. He had no technical background at all. Everybody was in shock. And, I said, look, this young man can communicate well. He works well with people, and it's going to be easier for him to learn the technology than it is for those people to learn how to work with other people and to empathize with them. And I think that's, companies are now testing today for EQ. As I mentioned in the book, 80% plus of your success in life is based on your emotional quotient. People, who do you want to work with? You want to work with people that you enjoy working with, that you get along with. Okay, and that's really what it boils down to. But that could be a subject of another podcast in and of itself. Okay,
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, when I was hiring at a commercial gym for a couple of years, and we gave a personality assessment. You got a personality assessment before you even got to an interview. I always said I can teach a monkey to do the job, but I got to have people who I think will fit in and work well with our client base.
Yep. Yes, and you brought up another point. I'm just going to go back on it. I mean, we do have a good standard of living. There is a growing gap between the haves and have-nots in some areas. But, I mean, our standard of living compared to what's going on in other countries. I've been privileged, and, I've traveled a lot. And, Kelvin, you've traveled as well, being in the military. So you get a chance to see what it's like in other parts of the world and to understand. I mean, some parts of the world don't have enough water, don't have food, they don't have security. I mean, we live in it. We live in a great country. But we need to start talking about great things instead of just going back and forth at each other and throwing insults and spears. That's not a formula for success at all.
There you go. That is not.
Yeah.
Now we got your book here. I'm looking at it. It's pretty, by the way. It's very.
You like the cover?
I do. And the website is matched with it. But you got a statement here. It all starts with you. Turn your goals into success. Here's another thing. There's also a lot of proponents out there who are poo-pooing goals. And I'm like, I'm sure you've run across some of them who are saying goals are not effective. What's your feedback on that?
Oh, gee. If you don't know where you're going, if you don't know where you're going to go, any road will take you there. Any road, because you have to have goals. If, for example, Kelvin, when you wake up in the morning, or Josh, you just don't say, okay, what's going to happen today? You probably have a plan. You put together some goals. You have short-term goals. You have long-term goals. But these goals provide you with a direction, a sense of purpose, and they motivate you. And it creates it bridges the gap between the mind and the body, and it creates a bias towards action. And and the body follows the mind, but you have to take that first step. You've heard of that Chinese proverb, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Yep. Well, ditch the excuses, take that first step and take another. And as soon as you get there, all the while, you're positioning yourself to take advantage of opportunities. And one thing I always ask people, I've been working with a young man lately, and he's doing much better now. But I told him, I said, what if 5 years from now, what if you are in this same position? Are you going to be happy? Will you be fulfilled? Will you be satisfied? He said, no. I said, well, okay, what are you going to do about it? He says, I don't know. I says, well, you have to find out. You have to put together a plan, and these plans have goals. And those goals will get you there. And, you just check one box off, and you keep going. But if you don't have goals, you're just going to drift from one harbor to the next, and eventually you run out of diesel fuel or food or something. But you got to have goals. You got to have goals. That's where it starts.
All right. Well, it's going to start with us. So you tell us you have a complete training manual to develop. I'm going to read it. Develop the operative mindset, habits, and skills for succeeding at any endeavor. Give us some of that. Give me an outline of what that's going to look like.
Okay. Well, I talk about you have to believe in yourself, and you have to believe in what you're doing, and you need to have a good fit. And the fit has to match your temperament, your skill set, your desires. But then you have to have your goals. And when you have your goals, you have to look at what you want to achieve, and you have to look at your value system. You have intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic is, I enjoy what I'm doing. I want to help people, things like that. Extrinsic is title and, money and things like that. You need to have a good balance, and you also need to have a personal and a professional plan and a fitness plan, because I think the three of those work together. So you put that strategy together, and then you commit. Okay, and you have to act on it. And as you act, you have to learn. You have to associate with good people. I talk about the importance of a mentor. And then I talk about the importance of emotional quotient, communication, and leadership. And I cover that in the second part of my book. And the last part of the book is, along this journey, you are going to experience adversity. You're going to fail. So I have one chapter on how do you recover from that? What do you do? And why is it beneficial? Why is it a learning experience? And then I get into the importance of team. And the last chapter is, these are the fundamentals, the 10 fundamentals that are important for success in any endeavor. Now, I'm encouraged by the reviews on Amazon. If you look at the reviews on Amazon, they're all stellar. And I did not pay these people for the reviews.
I was wondering, because I didn't get a cut.
Okay. Well, I'd like, that review I emailed you, you left a couple words out, but otherwise, okay. But on a serious note, there's something else going on too. I just found out last week. I will be meeting with one of the top business schools in the country. Mm-hmm. This business school is going to incorporate my book into their curriculum and make it a required reading for every graduate. Excellent. And they want me to commit to X number of classes and lectures per year when I'm out there. And I want to do that. And I think that is a kind of a validation of what I'm talking about.
I believe so.
Works. So that press release is coming out in January. It's a very good school. It's one of the top schools in the country, but I can't, I'll let you know when it happens.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. Are you familiar with Chris Voss?
Yes. I was on his show.
You were?
Yeah.
I just read a book by him the other day, and I'm like, holy smoke. For all the stuff I've been doing all this time, and the book I'm talking about was Never Split the Difference. Right? Negotiate as if your life depended on it.
Okay, this is there's two Chris Vosses. Okay, and it's
this one.
Right. Yeah.
You know what? I was singing that because I'm like, this didn't sound like the other guy. But all right, nope.
Yeah. There's a Chris Voss that has a podcast. He's based out of Las Vegas. I was on that one.
Okay.
And then the other Chris Voss is the ex-FBI hostage negotiator.
Right.
And so I got this request from Chris Voss to appear on the show, and I spent I'm looking at him. I told my wife, I said, some former hostage negotiator wants to interview me. I said, I don't know what this is all about. No, but I have not read his book. But if would you recommend it?
I absolutely would recommend it.
What's the name of it?
Never Split the Difference.
Never Split the Difference.
Negotiate as if your life depended on it. And a lot of he talks about emotional quotient, and he talks about a lot of what you're talking about, and add some more form to it. But actually, having just finished his book makes me really want to read yours.
Okay.
Right. Good. So it's good stuff. But you and him would make a great team. I tell you.
Well, and if he can't really talk the hostages out, I can put together a strike team. We'll go in and extract them. It's a win-win.
It would be. It would absolutely be. But I like that strategy part. So when we start talking about the individual skills, now I'm a big neuroscience guy, right?
Okay.
So an awful lot they're coming out with neuroscience these days talks about how the brain works and why doing certain things does this. And my view of most of the neuroscience we've come out with as far as success is concerned, it doesn't give us anything new for the most part, but it tells us why the old stuff works, why affirmations work, why positive mental attitudes works when you start putting together these neural pathways and stuff. So have you had any conversation on that?
Yes, I have. And Kelvin, you're right. It's the basics. It's the fundamentals that are important. And we sometimes lose sight of that. And in my book, I say these same principles were probably in Kyoto. That was the old capital of China, Rome, Greece, Boston, colonial Boston. This is all basic stuff. I mean, for example, they've done this. Look at neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. Right. You can kind of like train the mind. There are certain keywords that people use, and it's all weaved into some of the advertising and some of the political campaigning. And when you talk about the brain, I mean, there are ways to ingrain learning and to help with your learning. I mean, with Benjamin Franklin said, he says, tell me I remember. He says, tell me I forget, teach me I learn, and involve me, and I will remember, or I will. That's the best learning process. Yeah, and so by doing things versus not only reading, but by doing them, and in small steps, it helps to really ingrain that learning into your brain to convert it from short-term memory to long-term memory. And that's why if you're in a classroom, for example, instead of typing on a computer and doing the lecture, why not do it longhand? Write it out, and you get back, type notes up, and that action helps to convert it. But I believe that the mind can be trained, just like any other muscle in the body. But you have to be willing to do that. And some people just maybe don't buy into that. I don't know, but I think that's you get your mind right, the body's going to follow.
Right. So your program here is not passive.
No.
It requires action.
Yes. Yep. You have to define what it is you want to do and put those goals together. And like I said, we're all creatures of habit. We want to be creatures of good habit. And that habit that you form, that's your rhythm, that's your routine. You have to get into a flow, into a rhythm, into a routine. And you do that, it just kind of reinforces your behavior. Now, you're probably the same way. You're ex-military, but I mean, I work out, same workout every day of the week. I mix things up. I have a certain schedule. I like to plan. I have my short-term goals. I do lists. I just don't wake up and say, hey, what am I going to do today? And I mean, for example, when I wrote this book, I'd never written a book before. I said, well, how am I going to write this book? So the first thing I did is I looked at what mistakes do authors make. That was my first few weeks. I just looked at mistakes that authors made, because that's how you learn, is from other people's mistakes and your mistakes. And then I put together a goal. I didn't want to set myself up for failure. I just put a goal of 5,000 words a month. So I would track that. And at the end of each week, I would look at how many words I had done. Now, some weeks it would be better, some week would have been worse. But by doing that, I kind of put myself, on the spot, and I would tell other people that I was going to have it done by such and such a time. And if you involve other people in that as well, it puts a little pressure on yourself. And pressure's not altogether bad either.
Unless Josh is applying the pressure on you, it could be.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing,
Kelvin. I have never put a pressure on you that you didn't ask for.
That's correct. Josh is a perfect accountability partner for me. He's
well, and that's if he puts pressure on you, he's doing it because he loves you. Okay, you have a friendship, and he's not doing that because I remember one time my dad was my high school football coach, and he was getting on me one time, and it was a really terrible week. And I finally went up to him. I said, "Dad, what's wrong with me? You're yelling at me all the time." He says, "Son," he says, "you shouldn't worry about my yelling. You should worry when I stop, because that means I don't care anymore." So that criticism or those suggestions, okay, from Josh, that's coming from his heart. And you just have to take it professionally, not personally. Now, can Josh work on the way he phrases it and all of that? Well, then maybe you go back to that bar and you can talk about it. Okay?
I have acclimated, but he is right in one thing. He actually has never applied any that I didn't actually ask him to apply. So he has privileges here that I don't give a lot of people.
Okay, but he's walked the talk.
Yes. He
okay,
does, so.
And that's another thing: is actions speak louder than words. Okay, don't do as I say, do as I do, and you have to set the example. So hopefully, with Josh setting the example, and your able skill set and experience, you can vault this podcast into the stratosphere.
Working on it.
Yeah. Okay. My man.
And there you go. Excellent.
So I'm glad you like the cover, though, of the book.
And I've read the. I got some of it. I printed out your pages on discipline here, and then I also went to the Kindle version so I could see a little bit more of what was going on in there. So yeah, that's going to be in my repertoire before the day is out.
Okay, and if you look at the book, the cover has two purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, number one is you go from here to here. Mm-hmm. Okay, but through the maze of life. Okay, I'm going to help get you straight through. Okay, boom. This is the plan to get you through the maze. The other thing is that's supposed to represent neuronal activity, the neuroscience you were talking about, and conditioning the mind. So, right. And there could be a little NLP in there for all I know.
There probably is.
Got in there subliminally.
There probably is. All right. Josh, I've been talking a lot. Your turn.
Yeah, well, I was thinking that getting through the maze, getting straight through, is probably a good place to start to wrap up. But typically I get to be the bearer of the bad questions. Is there anything that we didn't get to that you wanted to talk about today?
Not. I would just say to those of your listening audience out there that you can be anything that you want to do if you're willing to plan and prepare and train. But you have to commit and ditch the excuses. And it's also important who you associate with, because you can have the best plan in the world, but if you don't have a good team, it's not going to go very well.
If you can't change the people around you, change the people around you.
Exactly. And the other thing is, don't sit here. If you're thinking of doing something, get in an action mode and do it, because time goes quickly. And a year from now, if you had started on something, you might be finished by now. So ditch the excuses, don't procrastinate, and get it done. And if it seems insurmountable, break it up into small pieces, take it one piece at a time, but just keep moving forward. And at the end of the day, be respectful, treat everybody as you would want to be treated, and do the right thing and have fun.
Great.
Have fun.
Where do you hang out online? Where can people find you?
Okay, I have a web. Well, you know what Darwin said? He says, "Not the strong that survive; it's those who adapt." Right?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I've had to adapt. I was a social media ghost up until this point. Okay, and I mean now I'm on. My goodness gracious, I'm on Instagram and Twitter, and I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn, I've been on that for a while. So I'm on all four of those platforms. My website is called itstartswithyou.net. It starts with you, YOU.net. And you know, anybody that's interested can go to the website. They can. There's a short bio on yours truly. You can also read the preface and the chapter on adversity. And there's a way to get a hold of me. You can link into all my different social media accounts, and there's a click where you can send me an email, and I'll get back to you straight away. But just remember, Kelvin and Josh, I'm just only a keystroke away. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, and I'm glad you had a safe holiday out there over Thanksgiving, and I wish the two of you all the best for the coming year and beyond. And you know, let's stay in touch. You're ever down in Knoxville, I'll buy you half a dozen beers. Okay.
All right.
Ooh,
Okay.
speak Josh's language.
Yeah, you do.
No, but you know, when I extend an invitation, I do not do it lightly. You know, there's no such thing as casual conversation in that regard. So, you know, it'd be good to see you at some point in time. And I wish you two gentlemen all the success in the world, and you take care.
Thanks, Fred. You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. Show notes and more at jkwdpodcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends, and we will see you next week. Bye.
A Better Humanhood production.